Everybody here. Recognize. Thanks for being here. We're going to move quickly through a lot of stuff because I realized in the last session I was so excited about some things I may not have gotten to all the things I wanted to get to. So I will be careful. Can anyone, does our schedule say we go till what time? 7:30. Oh, so much to do with so little time. My name is Ben Barron. I'm the owner and founder of College Drive Test Prep. The company started here in Colorado about 5 years ago. We work with a lot of schools in Jefferson County, other counties as well. And we're very delighted to be partners with Ralston Valley this year, last year, this year, and hopefully far into the future. So we're going to talk about we sponsored the practice test that your children, or you yourselves, if you're juniors, just took. If you did not pick up your test results, or if your child did not pick up his or her test results, they are over here at the end alphabetically, so you could pick them up. I know most students did, so just be aware that you can go ahead and do that. So we're going to go through a lot of information on the exam itself, starting with why these scores matter. And some of this is pretty straightforward, right? Your test scores, do you guys see the screen? No? Swing around, because there's some great slides. There are things going on here. You will be so disappointed when you actually see what the slides are. So, admission, right? Obviously, your higher test scores help you get admitted to the schools you want to go to. But be aware that there's also a lot of scholarship money available based on higher test scores. So some of you want to stay in state. Some of you want to go to CU. Some of you say, look, 26, that's the average score. I got that already. I could stop working to raise my score. But that's not really where you want to be. A higher test score is going to help you. It's going to make other options available to you. It will undoubtedly create scholarship opportunities. And you don't have to be at the super high range of scores to have an extra point or two mean maybe thousands of dollars in extra aid. So I want to encourage everyone not to stop just because you think you've hit a score that is okay. Work to get the highest score you possibly can. It can only help you. Nothing bad comes out of getting a higher test score. Why do you even have to take these tests? Real quickly, parents, how many of you took the SAT when you were in high school? How many took the ACT? So pretty even split. How many took both? Okay, some took both. Right? Typically, when we grew up, if you were on the East Coast or the West Coast, or you aspired to go to a school that was on the East Coast or West Coast, you took the SAT. If you were in the Midwest, or you Rocky Mountains, or aspired to go to school in the Midwest or Rocky Mountains, you took the ACT. Well, now everybody takes every test. The ACT is the larger of the two exams as of about a year ago. Almost 2 million students will take the ACT. We'll talk about why it's more in vogue than the SAT, but in Colorado, it's particularly true because every public school student has to take the ACT in the spring of junior year. 65,000 kids take the ACT come the end of April this coming school year. So we've got to do it. So why do you have to take the test? It's designed to predict how a student will do in his or her first year of college. So if you read a lot of the arguments, it's very controversial now. It's a politically charged issue. Should you have these tests? Are they overemphasized? Are they underemphasized? And people take different positions in it. I can tell you from our company's standpoint, we represent the students. So we're not saying whether we, it's not whether we like it or think it's fair. It's just that this is the way the system works. Higher test scores are going to help you get in, so we're going to help you get higher test scores. But the thinking behind it is, if you look at the two things that are the best predictors of how a student will do academically, they are his or her grades and his or her test scores. Equally predictive. Neither is a terribly good predictor, but they are the best predictors that are available. And if you look at both of them together, put them together, you get an even higher correlation. Again, not great, but the best that's there. So that's why students have to submit grades, and in most cases, test scores as well, although increasingly there are test-optional colleges, and that number will definitely grow over time. So that's why you take the test. Here's what the feedback sheets look like. If you have not seen them yet, if you haven't picked it up, or your child hasn't picked it up, or has not shown it to you just yet, this is what it will look like. First, you have the composite score. That's the feedback that you will get from the ACT. So you get an overall score, but then you'll get a score by sections. The score will be 1 to 36. Those scores will be added up and averaged, and that will give you your composite score. Next to that is the percentile rank of where that score is. Then down in this section, you'll get just a little bit more detailed feedback, more detailed than you'll get from the actual ACT. So you can see, how did you do in the English section? How did you do in each of the different passages? As they got harder, did you continue to do as well, or did you start to struggle? Same thing with the math. As the questions got harder, how did your performance go? So you got, it's a really good diagnostic tool, and then over here are just all the different answers. So what did you put for each of the different questions? And I don't know whether you guys kept the tests or not, but being able to get a hold of them is good. It could become a good tool to really look it over and see and practice and improve. Taking standardized tests is very much like developing any skill you look to develop. So people tend to think about standardized tests as just more school. It's just school. It's another test. It's more school, but it's not. It's actually more like anything you like to do. So let's say you are an athlete, football player. I guess if you're a football player, you're not here tonight. You're somewhere else. But if you're here, you're injured. I don't know. But whatever. Football player, basketball player, swimmer, skateboarder, actor, artist, whatever it is, musician, whatever it is you love to do. Think about the hours that you pour into a gamer. Think about the hours you willingly, gladly, passionately put into getting better at whatever it is you try to get better at. It's a lot. So it kind of makes sense to put the same effort into something that will have a big impact on your life. There is no downside to improving your performance on the ACT. We try to get our students to think about it not like more school, but more like an activity, a skill that should be developed. When people think about standardized tests, typically they think about the fact that it's another test that's standardized. But if you can think about it this way, as a standardized test, then you can understand why it's so easy to prepare for. The ACT is given 7 times a year. It is the same test all 7 times. It goes in the same order: English, math, reading, science. Has the same number of questions, the same length of each section. Scored the same way, same concepts being tested. Yes, the questions do change, but the concepts don't. So when you actually take this exam, this high-stakes exam, you may not be able to answer every question right. In fact, you probably won't. Very few students can in the country. But there's no reason to be surprised by anything. You should never be like, whoa, I never thought they would ask that. Who knew? Who knew the reading section went like that? The test is important, so know what's on it, be prepared for it. We'll talk about 4 different types of students and parents. See if you can see yourself in one of these boxes. So here we have our students with really good grades and really good test scores. And we think you're awesome. But we're not surprised because we think that's the way the world works, right? High test scores, high grades, they go together. Some of you may be in this category. Grades are terrific, top of your class. Teachers love you. But your test scores are not consistent with those grades. And it's frustrating. And it's annoying. We get a lot of college drive students are in this category. Just not sure why you're not testing at the level everything suggests you should be testing at. Some of you maybe, or parents, may have been in this category. Grades aren't so good, test scores aren't so good. School doesn't fit that well, it's just, it's not the place where you thrive, and the test scores are similar. Again, we think that's normal, right? That's the way we've been taught to think things should be. And then some of you are in this category. Grades aren't so good, maybe because school isn't a great fit, maybe because you're not working quite as hard as you could be. Grades aren't so good, but when it comes to making a standardized test, you rock. You nail it, you got it. It's easy, it's fun. You might not admit that it's fun. But years later, like me, you'll admit that it's fun. So you're in that category. I can tell you from doing this for 30 years now, 30 years around standardized tests, that those of you who are in this box do not like those of you who are in this box. Right? Because it's not fair. How could it be? Right? How could it be that my friend whose grades aren't nearly as good as mine, his test is killing me on the exam? It's just not right. It's not fair. But it points out that they're measuring very different things. So our goal is to help those of you who are in this category raise your test-taking performance. Understand what's holding you back, get you to think about the test a little bit differently, and get better. And then those of you in this category who want your test scores to stay great, maybe push your grades up a little bit as well. It'll help you. So, test anxiety, that's part of what holds back otherwise good students. You do well in school, you work hard, but when it comes time to take these high-stakes exams, it's hard. So things to recognize with test anxiety. And you're not sure why, and it's frustrating, and it's annoying. So recognize first, it's real. It's a real thing. This is not like it's not fake. You're not making it up. And there are physical manifestations, and when you get nervous and your palms get sweaty, you cannot think as clearly, you cannot perform as well. Once the physical manifestations start, you're going down a path of not doing as well as you can do, because your brain is not fully able to function. The good news is, you can get better. There's things you can do to help you get better, help you be relaxed, help you work through it. A big part of it is your preparation, is being prepared. Right? The more prepared you are, the more confidence you are. The more confidence you have, the more success you will have. The more success you will have, the more confidence you'll have. It becomes a virtuous circle. So recognize that test anxiety, it's real, it affects you, but you can work your way through it. Real quickly, a couple things about the exam. Okay, I mentioned this already. We go from English to math to reading to science. There is an optional essay. It is not part of the state test at the end of April, because state schools in Colorado do not require the essay. But if you aspire to go to some of the more competitive schools, if you aspire to an Ivy League school, Stanford, these schools will require that you take the essay, so you can count on taking the ACT at least twice. You'll take the state test, and you'll have to take it again to get the essay done. It's an unfortunate part of how the system works, but it is how the system works. How does the SAT, ACT, and SAT compare? So for those of you more familiar with the SAT and the scoring, maximum score on the ACT is a 36. A fraction of a percent get that on the ACT. Similarly on the SAT, the highest score is 800. A fraction of a percent will get that score. If you randomly bubble in all the answers on the ACT and you fill in if you answer every single question randomly, without even thinking about it, you'll probably get 10, 11, 12 in that area. On the SAT, you get 200 points just for signing your name. But you cannot sign your name 4 times and get an 800. You tried it, it did not work. Median score about a 20 on the ACT, 500 on the SAT, 75th percentile, so now starting to get to a pretty solid level, 24 roughly on the ACT, it varies by section, and 590 on the SAT, also varies by section. And the elite range is typically what we think of when your score goes above 30 on the ACT or above 700 on the SAT. So just to give you a sense of where the scores are. Very quickly, don't want to focus too much on this tonight because of our limited time. How are the exams different? ACT tends to focus on content, curriculum. It's an attempt to test you on things you have learned. The SAT was built to be a critical reasoning test, more built on how you think. So because curriculum testing is more in vogue, the ACT has become more popular, and the SAT has struggled, so that the ACT has become the more popular of the 2 exams. There are some other particular differences. If you follow the news, one of the things that you'd learn is the tests are becoming more similar over time. The SAT is making changes to make it much more like the ACT. Average scores at Colorado schools, just to give you a sense of what types of scores you might be aspiring to. Colorado State, about a 25. CU Boulder, above a 26, 26, 27, although much higher if you would like to go to the School of Engineering or the business school. DU, about a 28, getting up to 28. All of these have been going up over time as things become more competitive. Air Force School of Mines, about a 30. Colorado College School, with which you might not be familiar, small liberal arts college down in Colorado Springs, a 32. So that actually has the highest average score in the state. So just to give you a sense of where you might be, what you might be shooting for. Test taking tips. Took the time to be here this evening. I want to make sure you leave with some really good practical tips that will help students, will help you get a higher score. Parents, will help you impress your children with what you know about this test. First, everything's worth a point. Everything's worth a point. The hard questions are worth a point. The easy questions are worth a point. So what does that mean? Do the easy questions first. Not always easy to identify what is an easy question, but you want to do the things you know first. So parents, you may have taught your children that in life, you should always do the hard things first. That is the path to a successful life outcome. And that is very good life advice, but it is bad test-taking advice. A standardized test, it's about getting points. So you do what you know. Don't get hung up on things that are going to take more time, at least until you've done all the things you already know. You do not lose any points on the ACT for wrong answers, so you must fill in everything. If I look at the practice test results, I'm sure I will see a lot of questions that did not get answered. You have to make sure, if you get to the end of a section and there are 10 unanswered questions, you just bubble them in. Get them filled in, and you have to get them filled in before time is up, because if you wait until time is up, you can no longer write on that section of the test. Does that mean because you answered those last 10 questions randomly, does that mean you're smarter, more intellectual? Obviously not. But it will get you more points, so do it. Do it. It will get you a higher score. It'll get you 2 or 3 more right answers. It'll get you an extra point on the section. These final things we're going to show in just a moment. But the big takeaway is the notion of identifying the concept being tested. If you could look at each question, whether it's in the English section, the math section, the reading section, the science section, and you can identify what you're being tested on, you have a great chance of getting it right. So my best way of demonstrating that to you is to do what I know you all really came here to do, what you were hoping for, and you are excited to be able to do, and that is a practice question. Because when you woke up this morning, you said, the thing I want to do after a long day of work and school is practice ACT questions. I know you were thinking that. Maybe not, but let's do it anyway. So this is from the English section. It's a grammar question, which is slightly more than half of the questions in the English section. Our job is to read it, look at what's underlined, look at all our choices, decide whether we want to keep it the way it is or change it to something else, and then we will talk about it. Give you a moment to look at it. Okay. For those of you who can't see it too well, the washers and dryers are lime green, and the paneling on the walls has been painted to match, although it was later varnished with some kind of artificial wood grain finish. Okay, we're all going to vote. We have an election coming up, so we all want to participate. And everyone's got to vote. We're not leaving until everybody votes for something. How many of you, and so to avoid order bias, we'll start from the bottom. How many like J? Okay, support for J, a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. H? Solid. Solid turnout for the H supporters. G? Okay. I always like the unenthusiastic vote. Not thrilled about it, but sure. F, I mean like F. Wait, not too much for F either. So remember what I said, identify the concept being tested. If you can do that, how many of you believe that the concept being tested has to do with tense, verb tense? How many believe that the concept being tested is subject-verb agreement? How many people want to change their answer? Identify the concept being tested and know the test. Know how this test is put together. Right? On the walls is a prepositional phrase. It is just a distractor. Right? Because if you looked at it, you said the walls are painted, the walls were painted, the walls have been painted. They all sounded great. And we teach students, one of our strategies is trust your ear. But don't trust it too much. Bigger strategy is know what you're being tested on. So prepositional phrases are just a distraction. The subject is paneling. And even though paneling consists of many panels, it is singular. So the paneling has been painted to match. This is a very hard question. This is about as hard a grammar question as you'll get. So if you got it right, the few of you who got it right, congratulations. That's awesome. That is awesome. But if you got it wrong, it is equally awesome because, like in sports or other things, getting it wrong spurs you to get it right the next time and to recognize what happened. You pay a little bit more attention when you make a mistake so that you'll get it right the next time. And maybe you won't get it right the next time, but maybe the time after that or the time after that. This is why you practice. This is why you prepare. This is why you develop your skill. So that when it really counts, you can get it right. Because this question will appear. The question will appear because it always does. It'll be changed. What's that?
You can ask the question again.
No, it's not going to be paneling. It's going to be something else. It's going to be oranges. It's going to be apples. Right? It may not be on the walls, it may be on the floor, but it's going to be tested.
Can you go back one slide? There was very last tip. There was, yeah.
The last tip is learn to think like the test maker. So understand what the prepositional phrase does and why it's in there. I got the signal, I've got about 3 minutes left, and I just want to mention a couple other things real quickly. I'm so disappointed we don't have more time, because if we did, we could do another question. And we could have done a math question. It was awesome. I know it's terribly disappointing, but I do have to tell you about things that are coming up with timeline. We mentioned the state test will be at the end of April. There is a national test date in February. There's actually another national test date in April. We think it's a good idea for students to take the test in February if you have time to prepare for it. Because typically, students will take the test twice or even 3 times. So if you take it for the first time in April, then you'll probably take it again in June or September. But if you can start early, if you have time to prepare for it, if it works in your schedule, then consider taking the February test as well. Those of you who are thinking about the PSAT, or parents you're thinking about your children should take the PSAT. Remember, the P is practice. Right? It is not a test that counts for anything unless you are an elite test taker, because it's also the test that determines the National Merit Scholars. So if you are a test taker in the 90th percentile and above, and you know you're at that top range, then by all means you want to take it, because if you get a National Merit Scholarship, you'll get some scholarship money, you'll get a tremendous honor that will be very helpful in the admissions process. So it's a great feather in your cap. But don't feel pressure that everyone has to take the PSAT. The tests that matter are going to be when you take the actual exams as well. Things that we will be doing here. So College Drive will be doing some work with the faculty this year as the year goes on. Some other workshops. We'll also have a class in preparation for that April state test date. So this will be on-campus classes on Saturdays. It's a 10-hour class, 2 consecutive Saturdays, 5 hours each. So that will be available to Ralston Valley students. But for many students who will want to do more preparation or work in smaller classes, smaller groups, or even individually, there'll be opportunities for that as well. So this one's a little bit closer to the exam, a little bit shorter in length, a little bit less expensive. So that is an option that is available. We've probably got about a minute. Who's got a question? Yes?
So thinking about the differences between the ACT and the SAT, if a student, is it typical if you do if you do well on one, you'll do well on another, or are there students where one test really seems to help them shine, so that would be the score that you would use?
That is a great question. The answers are yes and yes. Yes, students who do well on one tend to do well on the other, but yes, students will pop on one test versus the other. In Colorado, because everyone has grown up, the CSAP exams, the TCAP exams are all ACT type exams, so the Plan, the Explore, everyone in public school has grown up taking tests that have pushed them toward the ACT. So our students tend to do better on the ACT. The SAT is great for students with good vocabulary. There's a lot more vocabulary tested on the SAT. It's more critical reasoning. So you can take a less formal approach. If you have trouble reading quickly enough, on the ACT it's hard to do all the reading. The SAT, you have more time to do the reading. So if you need more time for the reading, the SAT can help. So there are some differences that could make a difference. So we encourage students to take both, see which one seems to be better, and then go from there.
And then you can pick which score you want.
Yeah, you can send not only which test you want, but which score from which test you want. So you don't get penalized for taking all the time. Thank you everyone for being here. See you during the year.